Welcome back. It's season 4 of Serious and Silly with Scott and Sheila. Sheila is off this week, but we have a wonderful guest. It's a heartbreaking story, but it's also one of the most romantic stories I've heard. And on this Valentine's edition of our episode, we're so glad to welcome Roseann Sdoia Materia with us. And we have so many questions to ask her, so let's get right into it. Roseann, how are you?
I'm great, Scott. Thank you for having me. I really appreciate it.
Thank you so much. Welcome to Champlain College. And your story starts off, like I said, a little tragic. 9 years ago, you were part of the Boston Marathon bombings. 9 years ago, most of our students were 7, 8, 9 years old. So for those who don't remember, 2 bombs detonated near the finish line of the Boston Marathon. And what do you remember about that day?
Well, so one of the things, and I'm not sure if any of your listeners would know, but the Boston Marathon is a big deal. It's been going on for over 100 years here in Massachusetts and Boston, and it draws people from all over the world. It's probably one of, if not the biggest marathon in the world. And so there's about 30,000 runners who run this race every year. It's held the third Monday in April, which is, it marks a couple of important things for us. Number one, it marks, most importantly, school vacation for elementary schoolers. You get that whole week off, which is great. And that Monday is actually Patriots Day. To us, what that is that's the day that Paul Revere kind of alerted everybody that the British were coming. So it's a holiday that we celebrate as Patriots Day because the American Revolution started just outside of the city of Boston. So Boston and the Revolution and Paul Revere and all that's really big history for us. And then on top of that, you add the Boston Marathon that happens that particular Monday. So, growing up in the area, I would say, the majority of us have been to the marathon, if not once, multiple times. I was never a runner, but as I got older, I liked to have a few cocktails, have some nachos, maybe some chocolate. So I would run just to kind of try to stay in shape or healthy as I could be so I could enjoy these things. So, I'd go into the marathon, I'd cheer my friends on that could do the 26.2 miles. And I would think to myself, maybe next year I'll do 26.2 miles, but I never quite got there. So leading up to that, and not to take all the time about this, but it was a place that I'd been every year for I don't know how many years growing up, doing it with my father, with my cousins, my sister, and then moving on to friends. So it was just tradition for us. And I really remember the day as if it was like yesterday, which is a good thing and a bad thing, but started out with friends at the Red Sox game, made our way over to where this restaurant was that we would go to every year to hang out with friends. And then, you'd get notifications on your cell phone stating that whoever your friend was running, you'd get an automated alert update that they were getting closer. So we knew like when it would be time to go out of the restaurant and stand along the barricades that kind of separate the runners and the spectators. And so we'd got notified that our friend Jen was probably 10, 15 minutes away and didn't want to miss her. So where we were standing was basically about a quarter of a mile to the finish. So we were very close to the finish. And just got out there chit-chatting, and all of a sudden, you hear this explosion down to the left. And, again, from being there for multiple years, they never had celebratory cannons. They, the elite runners had come in hours and hours prior to this. And, it just wasn't normal. And then where I was standing, we were like 2 blocks away from that explosion. And, people started moving up towards us, and then you'd hear rumors. And of course, it's only within like 10 seconds. So it all happened so fast. but I decided quickly to get into the middle of the street, jump the barricade, or at least try to. And then I realized I couldn't. I'm too short. All of my 5'1" stature was not going to make it over that barricade safely. So I turned to my right and saw 2 flashes of white light at my feet, and that was the bomb going off. Spun me around. I, can remember it spun me around, and I can remember kind of bumping into somebody, like my back into whomever, and then kind of coming to within seconds, sitting on the edge of the sidewalk in the opposite direction of where I was running. So, it was just very surreal. It felt like a horror movie that myself and many others were starring in, and just didn't know literally what hit me. Had no idea.
Yeah. So as much as I said, yeah, it's definitely a heartbreaking story. And we definitely want to acknowledge the 280 people that were injured and the 3 people that were dead, that died because of that. And our hearts go out to those people. But like we said, there is kind of a nice ending. So let's just get into it a little bit. So right away, you meet 3 wonderful people, right, after the bombings go off.
Yeah, it was kind of in a quick phase where this college student came out of the smoke and carried me to the middle of the street. Then a Boston police officer, she came over, Shayna Catone came over to help me, just kind of keep me calm, get my family contacted, get information for me to get my family contacted. And about 2 blocks from where the second explosion happened, where I was, is a fire station. Now, in the city of Boston, we have a lot of amazing hospitals and, a lot of EMTs. And this particular day with the marathon, so close to the finish, there were ambulances like lined up a street or so away. And when everything started happening, they all started coming down the street. And so I started being assisted by a group of firefighters that were from the house 2 blocks away. And nothing about my story is usual. I mean, it's not usual to get blown up, number one. Number two, to have a college student help you. I was trying to go in the other way. So he's helping. And then I have these 2 other people, or several other people helping me, really. But at the time, all the ambulances were full. So they loaded me back into what we call, we call it a paddy wagon here in Massachusetts, but a police prisoner transport vehicle. And so myself and another survivor, and then 2 firemen climbed in to keep us stable on the back of the benches or on top of the benches. So coming to in the hospital about a day later, my mother starts telling me that this really handsome firefighter helped me. And if you have to, I think, Scott, you mentioned that you read our book, Perfect Strangers. Did you read the book?
I started, yes.
Okay. Well, if you've gotten to the section, my mother is a real piece of work. So I basically
I love this story.
I basically had to tell her that I just got blown up and stop trying to fix me up. So, just one of those things that these people came into my life, and we had an automatic bond because it was an unbelievable, rare situation to have happen in our city. And especially on this particular day that is important to so many for so many reasons, and I had these 3 people come into my life, and not to take any longer, but to get to the punch, out of the 3, I ended up marrying one.
Yes, well, we will skip to a little bit of the finish line, but I just want to backtrack quickly. Was that the first time you've been in a paddy wagon, or will we save that for the next interview?
Oh, I love that. I love that you asked that question. Believe it or not, and I've told my parents this, but it is the truth. It is the first time I've ever been in the back of a paddy wagon. A police cruiser is a whole nother story for another time that we can save. But a paddy wagon is definitely the only time I've been in the back of that.
So we'll skip to the happy ending. This is your husband, Mike. The question I had about this is, obviously one of the nicest guys. He kept coming to check on you. Has he admitted yet that as nice as he is, the reason he came to check on you is because he kind of had the hots for you?
Uh, Not 100% has he admitted to that. No,
Okay.
not just yet, really. But
Okay.
yeah, it was kind of funny. And the poor guy, unknowingly on his side, but I did put him through a few tests to see what was going on
Yeah.
subconsciously.
Well, he got your mother's approval right away.
Oh,
So
yes, yes. And even till this day, he's still the favorite.
yeah. Okay. I have the same thing with my wife. My parents like her way better than me. So
Yeah.
I feel your pain.
Yeah.
So basically you're in the hospital and this is a crazy journey. And like we said, your now husband, Mike, just kind of checks on you. How did that evolve? And when did you guys start to think like, maybe there's something here? It is the Valentine's edition after all.
Yes, it is. Yes. So, first off, when everything happened and my girlfriends, because everybody was at the hospital waiting to find out if I was going to live and all that stuff. So, all of a sudden I hear all these little like whispers of, he's really nice. We've been on his Facebook page, he's single, we don't see any girls in the pictures. And I'm like, oh, okay. And then there was a time that I was in rehab and I had seen on Facebook that he was out with all my girlfriends and I got a little like twinge of jealousy. I'm like,
oh, wow.
What's he doing out with all my girlfriends and not here visiting with me right now? Like I was kind of annoyed. And, he basically just had said that his schedule was different than my family's, and my family had put like weeks in of coming to see me every day, missing work and dealing with other, I had a grandmother at the time who was not feeling the best, and my father's girlfriend was ill. And so he looked tired, and Mike was like, well, I can help take you to doctor's appointments or whatever. And so he ended up joining me with my prosthetist appointments, which ended up being like a 4-hour, 5-hour day, driving, meeting with them, kind of understanding who they are, whether or not we like them, questions, lunch. And then, he's like, well, I'd like to take you out on a date. And I was like, okay, that sounds like a plan. So, it was, and part of it too, is I was doing an interview for People magazine, and they were running late or something, and I couldn't stay to be interviewed there. So she had called me like the next day, and she's like, just by the way, off the record, what's going on with you and Mike? I'm like, nothing. And she's like, really? She's like, yeah. I said, if there's something going on, you'll be the first one to know after my mother.
Okay.
And then I guess she did the interview with Mike and asked him the same question. And he's like, nothing. We're just supporting each other through a difficult time, which was my answer too, unknowingly, that we had the same answer. But, it just evolved in getting to know each other and spending a lot of time. And is it partly because of what we went through? There's probably bond in that situation as well. But, you kind of look for this person that meets all of the things that you want. And, he's just an amazing guy. And, we are at times different, but we're also at times the same. And we just, I think, complement each other very well. And, you can laugh at the end of the day through all of this. And, we'll be driving down Boylston Street where the explosion happened, and kind of where I was in the middle of the road, and I'll be like, oh, this is where we had our first date.
Oh,
And
that is funny in a very, very, yes, cute, weird way.
Yeah. So, obviously we have these weird jokes between the two of us. And, he's just a great guy, and he's hard not to love.
Amazing. So you wrote a wonderful book, and when I was reading up on you, it has one of the best like lines to describe your book. And so your book is named Perfect Strangers. Yeah, it looks great. And you said it's about recovery and about choosing joy and human connection over anger and resentment. And what a great way to live life. So how did the book come about? And is this some sort of like way of helping you recover a little bit?
Yes, absolutely. Early on, not knowing the ramifications and how big this thing was, and there were reporters telling stories about that day, and reading them in the articles, and I'm like, oh, that really didn't happen, or that person really wasn't there. And in my mind, I thought to myself, if someone's going to tell my story, it's going to be me. And kind of had talked to Mike and Shana and Shores, because we really all had connected and had really stayed close, and pretty close to this day as well. So kind of talking to them, I'm like, listen, people tell me that I should do a book, I should do a book, I should do a book. So I think I'm going to look into doing a book. Would you guys want to be part of it? And Mike said, I'll do it if Shana and Shores agree to doing it. So okay. He was voted in regardless of whether he wanted to do it or not. And, part of it too is I had gone back to work for a short period of time. And one of my colleagues had said to me, how does it feel to be part of history? And that really took me back and made me stop and think of like, oh my God, I never really thought of it that way. And in my mind, I thought, well, if someone's going to tell my story, it's going to be me. It's going to be from our perspective of how it went down, and we're going to have control of the story and make sure that as many details that we can, that we get in here are the way we saw it, and our facts, not someone just reading up on articles and saying, oh, I think this person was there, putting them in. So that's basically how it came about, and just really wanting to have our story told from our voice and our personalities. And the ghostwriter did an amazing job of getting all of us down, our personalities. I mean, I know I mentioned my mom in there, earlier in the interview, and everything that's in the book about her came from her lips. So it's not me exaggerating her. It's not me making her into this crazy character. She knows she's crazy and likes to be called crazy. So, it's all of us, and it's really us in the book.
Got to embrace the crazy.
Yeah. Yeah, you do,
Yeah. The other thing I wanted to talk to you about is your website, robostrong.com.
Yes.
Just looking on it, some amazing stories and information. How did that come about, and what do you kind of hope to accomplish with that going further?
So with the website RoboStrong, it's really a channel for me to have people find me to do public speaking, to share my story, maybe find out about the book. The book is one of those things that it's nice to have if people want to hear the whole story and all of it, but it's really a way for people to find me, connect with me, ask me questions. And I don't know if it's because I'm an amputee now, but there seem to be a lot of people this day and age that are getting amputations. And because our story was a huge media sensation, we had all of these amputees and groups and organizations coming to us. And my goal is really to pay it forward and to be able to connect people or help people and answer questions for people that are newly amputated or are facing an amputation. And, really kind of help people out if I can. And through that also, the organizations that came to me, I can't imagine being an amputee and going through all of this on my own or trying to find these resources on my own. And if I can direct somebody to get help or help them myself personally, that's really my goal.
Yeah, you are so wonderful. I mean, I wrote to you yesterday, and like, you said you've done 75 or 80 of these interviews, and right away you said, I'll do it. And without even knowing who I was or what Champlain College was about. So I can't thank you enough. But before
I hope it doesn't bite me in the butt sometime, in life, because I don't tend to really do much investigation. I just, sure, but
sure.
What am I going to do?
College, it's a thing.
Yeah.
I just wanted
it looks very official, Scott. So
yeah, totally. I wanted to just ask you about something I read, and I found it phenomenal. You guys actually climbed the 1,576 steps of the Empire State Building.
Yes.
I need to hear this.
One of the groups that helped us early on was the Challenge Athletes Foundation. They're based out of San Diego, California, and they do a lot with disabled people, whether you're a veteran, it doesn't matter what your disability is. And they just want people to get back into life and to be active and be healthy and all that. So they stepped up early on, made a contact there who has been such a mentor to me. She's an above knee amputee, similar to me, but she was born with the birth defect versus having it injured. But she's been amazing. As a matter of fact, I had seen her on a TV show, and I don't know if you have the TV show, but The Amazing Race.
Yes.
Okay. So it's been one of my favorite TV shows. It's like one of the only reality shows I watch because I just love the dynamic of it. And she was on it, and I wasn't an amputee at the time. And I was so amazed at her strength, her ability, her determination to do this show, climbing up, ropes and walls and rocks with a prosthetic. And I was just shocked. And whenever I got to meet her, I was just, I'm like, oh, if I can have one smidgen of what she has living through this, then that's great. And she became my mentor. And my husband at one time, there was something that he saw, he's like, oh, that'd be fun to do. And she goes, oh, I probably can get you guys bibs to do it. And so, and it's, as soon as you say these things, it happens. So we trained in Boston on the Bunker Hill Monument. It's where one of the battles happened for our revolution here in America. And it is this concrete structure that you go up the stairs and up to the top. And I think there's 294 stairs in there, and there's no elevator up or down. So it goes around and around. And we did that for several months, up and down, up and down, up and down, until we got close to the 1,500 mark, being able to do it so that you were doing 1,500 stairs. And that's how we trained. And it was a cool, really, really, really cool experience doing that.
I did like 12 stairs today, and I needed to lie down. So,
anybody can do stairs. Don't ask me to run a marathon. Don't ask me to run down the street, but the stairs, anybody can do it.
You said you wanted this much of a smidgen. You're many, many smidgens, and I can't thank you enough for joining us. Your story is, like I said, heartbreaking, but it's wonderful. And I think your spirit and your positiveness is just wonderful. So thank you so much, Roseann, for
You're too kind,
us on
Scott.
our show today.
Thank you for having me, and I really appreciate the opportunity.
Thank you. All the best, and say hi to your husband, Mike, for us.
I will. Thank you, Scott.